Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we sift through all that information you send our way, the articles, the data, the noise, and really pull out what matters.
We try to get straight to the point so you can be, well, instantly informed. And
Yeah.
today, we're diving into someone whose career is just fascinatingly contradictory.
Right. I mean, think about it. You've got the voice, the screeching, sort of chaotic voice of a hormone monster from, Big Mouth.
Which is huge on Netflix, obviously. And then on the complete other end of the spectrum, you have the intense, serious face of an Israeli intelligence agent in a historical drama, chasing Nazis, no less.
It's kind of wild. So
Yeah.
who is this person who can convincingly pull off both? Nicholas Kroll.
That's our guy today.
And what we want to do is really trace his path. We're going to unpack his background, which is surprisingly affluent, actually.
That's surprising.
Yeah, and look at his early sketch work, how dedicated he was to building characters, and then how he made that jump, from performer to, co-creator and the driving force behind this massive animated franchise.
And we've got a lot to work with. We've pulled together sources covering his life, his time at Georgetown, that really diverse filmography, TV, movies, voice acting.
All of it. Plus his big creative partnerships, what critics think, and how he manages to make these, frankly, ridiculous characters feel kind of meaningful.
Yeah, it's quite a range.
Okay, let's get into the basics first. Just the foundational stuff. He was born June 5, 1978, in Rye, New York.
Right. And it's key to remember, he's not just an actor. The sources list him as actor, comedian, writer, and producer.
A quadruple threat, basically. And he's been active since about 2004, really shaping modern comedy both in front of and behind the camera.
Okay, so segment 1, the foundation and early life.
Yeah, let's start there. Because to really get Kroll, and especially the kind of characters he creates, you almost have to start with his family. It's not the typical story, is it?
Not at all. It really stands out in the source material. He's the youngest kid, born to Lynn and Jules Kroll.
And Jules Kroll. I mean, we need to pause on that name. We're not talking about just, comfortable success here.
No, this is major league. Jules Kroll is a billionaire businessman. He founded Kroll Inc.
Which, for anyone unfamiliar, is basically the gold standard, arguably the most famous firm for corporate investigations and risk consulting globally.
Yeah, they handle incredibly complex stuff.
Yeah.
Financial fraud, high-level security risks, even international intelligence gathering. It's serious business.
And that's what's so interesting, right? The contrast. You've got the father building this empire based on discretion, finance, serious investigation.
Serious, high stakes.
Exactly. And then the son grows up and dedicates his life to playing characters like Bobby Bottle Service.
Bobby Bottle Service,
Yeah.
the Ed Hardy guy.
Yeah.
Loud, chaotic, a total parody of that reality TV vibe.
It just makes you rethink things, doesn't it? Like, what drives him? He grew up in Rye, New York, conservative Jewish family, siblings, Jeremy, Vanessa, Dana.
Seems pretty standard upscale suburban life on the surface. Attended Solomon Schechter School, Westchester, then Rye Country Day School, all very much reflecting that environment.
But then there's this interesting detour mentioned in the sources, something that suggests he was already looking for a different path.
Right, he spent some time during high school at the Mountain School. It's in Vershire, Vermont.
And that's not just another prep school. It's like this immersive semester program, environmental science, working on a farm.
A world away from Westchester, basically.
Totally. It sounds almost like he was actively seeking something grittier, more hands-on, developing a fondness for hiking there.
Leaving that world of, high finance and corporate intelligence to be on Vermont trails, it definitely suggests an internal drive beyond just inheriting status.
Yeah, like he was already searching for something else.
And that kind of curiosity seems to have carried over into college. He went to Georgetown, graduated in 2001, but his major, that tells the story too.
This part I found really telling. He started out, or described himself initially, as a history major, which makes sense, right? Understanding narrative, context.
Very analytical.
Plus minors in art and Spanish. Pretty standard liberal arts. But then he specifically mentions, and this is a quote, finding himself gravitating toward media studies as time went on.
And that gravitating feels important. History gives you the background for deep characters, art gives the creative spark, but media studies, that's the practical side.
Right. Production, performance, how stuff gets out there. The whole system he'd later use with Funny or Die, and eventually, obviously, Netflix.
So, thinking about this foundation, you, the listener, need to grasp this. Kroll wasn't coming from a place of needing to pay the rent with his next joke.
Not at all. And that financial security, it means creative freedom. He could try the weirdest, most specific stuff.
He could afford to bomb, basically.
Right.
Which, let's be honest, is often how you get to the really great original comedy. You need that room to fail spectacularly.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Let's move into segment 2, how he actually started building those characters, the sketch and stand-up years.
Right, so with that unusual foundation, he enters the professional world. And interestingly, he didn't start on stage, really. He started writing.
Yeah, his early credits are in the writers' rooms for some huge shows back then. Comedy Central's Chattel Show, for one.
And MTV's Human Giant,
Yeah.
which, I mean, talk about influential sketch comedy at the time.
Absolutely essential training grounds, learning sketch structure, timing, how to land a punchline. Gave him the bones, you know?
Definitely. But the place where he really seemed to forge his performance style, his voice, was live comedy.
For sure. He toured with Aziz Ansari. That was the Glow in the Dark tour back in 2008, mixing stand-up with some of those character bits he was developing.
But the real incubator, the place everyone points to, is the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, UCB.
You can't talk about comedy in that era without talking about UCB. It wasn't just a stage, it was like a school, a specific method.
He studied there, performed constantly, both in New York and L.A. He even co-hosted a stand-up show, Welcome to Our Week, with Jesse Klein.
And if you're not familiar with UCB's whole thing, it's all about finding the game of the scene, that central funny idea or pattern, and then committing to it completely.
Which explains so much about his characters, right?
Right.
They're incredibly detailed because UCB teaches you to zero in on some tiny human behavior or cultural quirk and just blow it up.
Yeah, amplify it until it's almost universal in its specificity. And that work led to his own stand-up special, Thank You Very Cool, on Comedy Central in 2011.
But maybe even more impactful, certainly in terms of viral reach back then, were the actual characters he created during this time, the ones that blew up online, especially on Funny or Die.
Okay, yeah, this is where we get into the persona factory idea. And the prime example has to be Bobby Bottle Service.
Oh, absolutely. Bobby Bottle Service. That character was just perfectly of its moment. This hyper-specific parody of late 2000s reality TV guys.
The Ed Hardy Boys sketches with John Daly, and that fake audition tape he made for Jersey Shore, it was genius.
What made it work wasn't just the accent or the look, it was the details. Kroll absolutely nailed that specific blend of, like, club culture entitlement and weird vulnerability.
He captured the zeitgeist, and he did it with other characters too. Ref Jeff, remember him? The totally biased referee.
And Fabrice,
Yeah.
the craft services coordinator turned celebrity publicist. So over the top.
Fabrice is a great example of his vocal commitment too. That's a really affected, specific voice. You have to go all in.
And again, think about the guy doing this voice, the history major, son of the corporate investigator, fully embodying this flamboyant, judgmental character. The range is just, it's something else.
These characters were so strong, so defined, they eventually needed their own show. Which brings us to the Kroll Show.
Right. Ran 2013 to 2015 on Comedy Central. This was the main stage for all those personas. He created it, starred in it, let all those characters like Liz G and Caesar and the Publicity Women interact.
23 episodes. It really cemented his style and earned him recognition, like the Breakout Star Award at the Just for Laughs Festival in 2013.
But maybe the ultimate expression of this long-form character work, the one that really crossed over, was, ooh, hello?
Ah, yes. Gil Faison and George St. Geegland, his collaboration with John Mulaney.
Kroll is Gil, Mulaney is George. These two grumpy, opinionated, tuna-obsessed old guys from the Upper West Side.
What's amazing about Oh, Hello is how it proved that this really niche, specific UCB-style character comedy could actually work for a huge audience.
It started small, just a sketch bit. But their commitment to these characters' weird little world, the tuna, the specific complaints, the prank show, too much tuna, it just resonated.
So much that they toured it across the U.S., and then, the unbelievable part, it landed on Broadway in 2016.
A Broadway run. For 6 months. For a comedy show about two old guys giving terrible advice. And the reviews are great.
It really showed the power of just committing fully to a character, no matter how absurd. And then, of course, Netflix filmed the Broadway show, released it in 2017.
Which put Gil and George in front of millions. Made them these unlikely cultural figures, all built from that dedication to character.
Okay, let's pivot slightly. Segment 3. Looking at his more mainstream TV and film roles around this time. Because it wasn't all sketch.
Right. And actually, one of his earliest big breaks is a really interesting story, especially in terms of learning resilience.
You're talking about Cavemen.
Exactly. His first significant network role was on that ABC sitcom Cavemen, based on the Geico commercials.
Oh man, Cavemen. That show was Not well received.
Understatement. It was pretty much universally panned, canceled after only 7 episodes actually aired. It's like the definition of a TV flop.
Yet, Kroll himself has called that whole experience, quote, the most important experience of my professional career. Which sounds kind of crazy, right?
It does. Until you think about why. It wasn't about the show being good. It was about learning how the machine works.
Yeah, like seeing how a big network production operates or maybe malfunctions, the bureaucracy, the pressure, having to show up and deliver even when you know the ship is sinking.
Precisely. He learned discipline under fire. For you listening, that's a key takeaway. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from navigating a tough situation, a broken system. It builds resilience.
And he definitely applied that professionalism because his next big TV role was a huge success and provided real stability, The League.
Ah, Ruxin.
Yes?
He starred as Rodney Ruxin on The League on FXX. That show had a great run, October 2009 to December 2015.
So it overlapped perfectly with his Kroll Show years and the stand-up specials. It gave him a solid base.
And Ruxin was such a great character for him. This incredibly intense, competitive, kind of awful lawyer, totally obsessed with his fantasy football league.
It let him showcase this consistent, high-energy performance over 6 seasons. It definitely broadened his appeal beyond the hardcore sketch fans.
That combination, the steady gig on a hit ensemble show, plus the creative freedom he had from his background, that seems like the engine for his whole career at that point.
He was also popping up everywhere in guest roles on other big comedies of that era. Parks and Recreation.
He had the douche.
Yes. That obnoxious radio DJ. 5 episodes. He was also in Community as Jurgen.
And unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt as Trista Fey.
Yeah.
That ridiculously wealthy, clueless guy.
And New Girl, too, as Jamie. He was just part of that whole comedy ecosystem.
Yeah, very connected. And he also showed up on the Comedy Central roast of James Franco, which is a different skill set, right? Delivering sharp insult comedy live.
True. Shows versatility. Not just playing characters, but being himself, comedically.
And alongside the TV work, he was also consistently getting supporting roles in big comedy movies during that period.
Right, that late 2000s, early 2010s wave. He's Larry in I Love You, Man.
Kevin McLean, Get Him to the Greek. Josh in Dinner for Schmucks.
The maitre d's in Date Night. Adam Richman in A Good Old-Fashioned Orgy.
He wasn't always the lead, but he'd come in, deliver this really specific, committed comedic energy for a scene or two, and be memorable.
That's the mark of a great character actor, isn't it? He even got an Ensemble Award nomination for I Love You, Man. It showed his approach work to be an essential ingredient, even in a small dose.
Okay, so all this work, the deep character stuff from UCB, the writing, the stand-up, learning from failure, the mainstream TV and film roles, it all seems to lead directly to segment 4.
The animation empire. Big Mouth.
This is where he really levels up, moves from being primarily a performer and writer to a major creator and executive producer.
And it feels like such a natural evolution because Big Mouth itself feels built on those UCB principles, doesn't it?
Totally. Find a core human truth in this case, the absolute nightmare fuel of his puberty, and then commit to the game of it.
Which means, yeah, personifying hormones, shame, anxiety as these literal, often disgusting monsters.
Kroll co-created, writes for, and stars in Big Mouth. It hit Netflix in 2017, still going strong, set to end in 2025. Focuses on these 7th graders navigating puberty.
And it tackled topics like sex, identity, shame, with this incredible mix of, like, brutal honesty and complete absurdity. It felt pretty groundbreaking for animation.
A big part of why it works, I think, is the personal connection mentioned in the sources. The main characters, Nick Birch and Andrew Gloverman.
Voiced by Kroll and Mulaney, his Oh Hello partner.
Right. They're actually based on and named after Kroll and his real-life childhood best friend, Andrew Goldberg, who's also a co-creator on the show.
That autobiographical core gives it an anchor, right? It grounds all the wild fantasy stuff and lets them tackle really sensitive subjects without it feeling totally out of left field.
And this is where Kroll's voice acting mastery just explodes. He doesn't just voice Nick, the main kid character who's kind of based on him.
No way. The sources list is staggering. He voices a huge chunk of the show's entire soundscape.
Let's just list some. Maurice the Hormone Monster, that loud, chaotic, eye-driven creature.
Then there's Coach Steve, the completely clueless, sweet, but inappropriate gym teacher with that high, cracking voice.
And Lila, the really aggressive, insecure girl with that incredibly specific, almost painful vocal fry and lisp.
It's amazing. And that's not even mentioning Rick the Hormone Monster, who's older and worn out, the Jansen twins, Lady Liberty.
The fact that he creates the sound for Nick's awkwardness, Maurice's chaos, And Lola's very specific aggression, sometimes all in the same episode, maybe even the same scene.
It's the ultimate payoff for all that UCB character training. Total commitment to the voice.
And Big Mouth was so successful, it led to the spin-off, Human Resources.
Right, ran 2022 to 2023. Expanded on the world of the monsters, kind of like a workplace comedy. Kroll was co-creator, exec producer, writer, starred in that too.
But beyond his own shows, he started using this voice talent in major animated movies. And often, interestingly, as the villain.
Yeah, that was a bit of a shift. His first big animated villain role was in Sausage Party in 2016.
Where he voiced a douche.
A literal douche, yes. And there's a fun production note about that. Apparently, he first recorded it with a British accent.
Yeah, but then the filmmakers decided they wanted less of a Disney Renaissance vibe and more of a Pixar structure feel, so they had him re-record it with an American accent.
Which just shows voice acting isn't just doing a funny voice, it's serving the overall tone the production needs. You gotta be flexible.
Then in 2017, another big villain voice role. Professor Poopy Pants in Captain Underpants. The first epic movie.
Which is just a delightful character name.
Isn't it? And this role got some really specific, insightful praise from critics. Matt Zoller Seitz, for example.
Yeah, he didn't just say Kroll was funny. He really analyzed how the voice worked, called it irrepressibly silly.
And described the sound as an orange juice spit take voice, which is incredibly evocative.
It really is. Seitz went on to say, Kroll transforms the ridiculous into the sublime because of how he savors every syllable, even in the most nonsensical lines. Finding the character's peevishness, their self-pity.
That's high praise. Finding the humanity, the emotional core, even in Professor Poopy Pants. That's elevating comedic voice work to art.
And he just kept going with these voice roles. Gunter in the Sing movies.
Uncle Fester in the animated Addams Family movies, another very specific, weird voice.
Happy Sir Guy in The Secret Life of Pets 2. The Scary Carney in the Bob's Burgers movie.
He's basically become one of the go-to, most versatile and recognizable voices working in animation today. He built an empire there.
Oh, even as that animation success was peaking, he wasn't just resting on it. Which brings us to segment 5, expanding horizons and some personal details.
Yeah, the sources show this very deliberate move in recent years into non-comedic roles. Serious stuff. It feels like a conscious effort to challenge that perception of him as just the funny voice guy or the sketch guy.
It really does. And maybe it connects back to that history major background, or even the serious high-stakes world his father operated in, this desire for range.
These weren't just cameos either. These were significant roles in serious dramas.
Yeah.
Like in 2016, he played Bernie Cohen in Loving.
Which is the true story behind the Supreme Court case that struck down bans on interracial marriage. Playing a civil rights lawyer, that's a world away from Bobby Bottle Service.
Yeah, absolutely. Then in 2018, he played Rafi Eitan in Operation Finale. That's about the Mossad agents hunting down Adolf Eichmann in Argentina.
Just think about that whiplash for a second. You, the listener. 1 minute, he's Gilfizz on Broadway, complaining about tuna.
Literally complaining about too much tuna in a sandwich.
And the next, he's portraying this committed Israeli intelligence operative tracking a major Nazi war criminal. That willingness to step into that kind of dramatic weight, it's impressive. It shows the disciplined actor is still there.
And while doing this acting, he was also boosting his behind-the-scenes credits. He co-wrote the film Adult Beginners back in 2014.
And then wrote and produced the film Olympic Dreams in 2019.
And more recently, he kind of returned to his roots, but from the boss's chair, with that Hulu sketch series History of the World Part 2.
Right, Mel Brooks' sequel. Kroll was heavily involved in that 2023 series, writer, director, executive producer across the episodes.
So he's not abandoning comedy, he's just taking more control, elevating the kind of sketch work he loves by overseeing the whole process.
We should also mention his book writing briefly. Way back in 2005, he co-wrote a book called Bar Mitzvah Disco.
He wrote that with Jules Schell and Roger Bennett.
And Roger Bennett, the journalist and broadcaster, brings us into some interesting personal connections.
Yeah, Bennett is actually his brother-in-law. He's married to Kroll's sister, Vanessa.
Small world. Before his own marriage, Kroll was famously in a relationship with Amy Poehler.
Right, the sources mention that from about May 2013 to 2015.
Then, in November 2020, he married landscape artist Lily Kwong. Seems like a very low-key wedding.
Yeah, kept it private. And they have 2 kids now, a son born in January 2021 and a daughter born just recently, November 2023.
It paints a picture of a life that's kind of separate from the Hollywood frenzy. And interestingly, his wife's cousin is the well-known fashion designer Joseph Altuzarra.
So his network spans comedy, journalism, art, fashion. It's pretty diverse and grounded.
And one more note on his activities, he participated in that voter writers #ID check challenge before the 2020 election.
Raising awareness about voter ID laws
Yeah.
shows a level of civic engagement that maybe contrasts with some of the more purely absurd characters he plays.
Okay, so let's wrap up by looking at the accolades. Because the awards and nominations really do reflect that incredible range we've been talking about.
They absolutely do. It spans his whole career. You've got that early ensemble nomination for I Love You, Man.
A People's Choice nomination for The Kroll Show, showing the sketch success.
Then on the animation side, an Annie Award nomination for his voice work in Captain Underpants.
But the big ones are for Big Mouth, a Gotham Award nomination for Breakthrough Series early on.
And then, crucially, 3 consecutive Primetime Emmy nominations for Outstanding Animated Program 2019, 2020, and 2021. That really solidifies his status not just as a performer, but as a major creative force in TV production.
Okay. So the outro, we've gone through a lot of material here. What's the main takeaway from this deep dive into Nick Kroll?
I think the core lesson, looking at all the sources, is how his career is this kind of constant feedback loop, right? He mastered this very specific long-form character work, honed it at UCB where the stakes were low.
Right, where he could experiment freely.
And those unique skills were exactly what he needed to then create and executive produce something as big and complex as Big Mouth. He built the foundation first.
Yeah, and we saw how he took these almost weirdly niche skills and somehow scaled them up for a huge audience, but also, importantly, kept the perspective he gained from those early failures.
That caveman experience really stands out, seeing it not as a setback, but as like a masterclass in just getting the job done under pressure, turning failure into fuel.
And we definitely have to emphasize how he's consciously pushed against being pigeonholed. He's not just the hormone monster voice.
No. He's actively choosing these serious historical roles.
Yeah.
Building a body of work that proves he can handle dramatic weight just as well as he handles comedic chaos.
So connecting it all back to where we started, that surprising background, it leaves us with a final thought, maybe a question for you, the listener, to chew on.
Kroll creates these dozens of incredibly distinct, often manic, comedic voices. We hear Maurice, we hear Lola, Professor Poopy Pants.
Yet his own foundation is in this world of serious business, history, structure, coming from this prominent, successful family.
So what does that tell us? What does that serious, maybe even high-pressure background reveal about what actually fuels some of the best, most out-there comedic minds today?
Is it possible that being free from that typical starving artist pressure actually gave him the space to be more experimental, more willing to follow the truly ridiculous ideas?
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? That the stability and seriousness of, say, Kroll Inc. might have indirectly created the perfect conditions for the creative chaos of Big Mouth, the freedom to be truly weird.
A paradox worth considering. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.